Welcome back to another episode of Sheffy's Sandbox. And those of you who have been watching on YouTube, this is no surprise. But for those who have been listening, the last several episodes, I have full length video as well. And you may choose to go that route this time instead of listening because Sequoia, our guest today, does refer to several visuals during the interview. And I feel as though she does a great job of explaining what is appearing on the screen. But just to let you know, you may prefer to stop if you're listening and click on the link in the show notes to the YouTube video to watch there instead. All right, enjoy. Thanks for joining me in Sheffy's Sandbox. I'm April Dawn Scheffler, and I invite you to play with me and my guest today, Sequoia Nacmanie. Welcome, Sequoia.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, I thought a perfect introduction would be to ask you if you would do like a centering exercise, a breathing exercise, and you graciously accepted. So I'm going to hand the reins over to you.
All right. So I'll just get right into it. Okay. So I invite everybody listening to either close your eyes or have a soft focus. And taking a moment to tune into your breath. Just noticing however it is. And as you come home to yourself, beginning to feel your connection to the earth, feeling from your tailbone all the way down through whatever you're sitting on, through the floorboards of your house, through the top of the soil, through the crust of the earth, past all the different layers, all the different fossils, all the different creatures, down, 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 all the way to the center of the earth. And allowing that earth energy to move up through you in a gentle, easy way. And then allowing that to just be there. Then also feeling your connection to the sky. So just like we did with the tailbone, feeling your spine and your skull from the top of your head, connecting upward. Inviting in whatever it is you need in this moment to move down from the sky into your body. Feeling these two energies mixing with each other in a balanced and even way. So you have earth energy, your connection to the earth, and sky energy, your connection to the sky, both moving through your body in a gentle, even, and balanced way. And if there's any spot you feel, oh, I could use a little sky energy there. Oh, I could use a little earth energy there. Just gently invite it in. Allowing yourself to enjoy that balanced energy for a moment. And then gently coming back. If your eyes were closed, opening them. Returning here to this moment. So there we go. That is, I call that earth and sky meditation.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
So this is episode 58, and today's guest, again, her name is Sequoia Nacmanie. She is a spiritual teacher and intuitive tarot reader. And how I first met her or became acquainted with her offerings was, listeners know I have been a part of Gabrielle Ginter's Energy Tribe for a long time, have found a great community of women there. And one of them, her name is Mina, and she put in the group chat, guys, my neighbor, my friend Sequoia, she's offering a free 5-day intuition course. Check her out. She's a great person. So I have tons of respect for Mina. So anytime she puts her stamp of approval on somebody or anything, I know it's a safe bet. So I signed up for the class. And what I loved is that I guess I expected something different. Because I've taken other intuition courses before.
Yeah.
And some that were not free.
Uh-huh.
And they were maybe more, oh gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. I guess I should have put this together first, but like more modules of like ingredients, like a recipe for this is how this happens and this happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just surprised that the first step was actually just relaxing.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, and I'll put an explicit label on the podcast, but I mean, what's coming to me in the moment is like great sex, right? I mean, it makes sense. You need to be relaxed,
yeah,
in order to be able to receive.
Yeah.
And so that really, and sex is a creative act.
Totally.
And so I, my word picture I'm painting here is that the first step was not going straight to penetration or
right. Yeah.
It was setting the mood and just becoming receptive and, like you phrased it, coming home to yourself.
Right.
Because that is some of the best experiences when you're actually in it, like you're embodying it, you're feeling it, you're not somewhere else thinking about groceries.
Yeah.
So it was a practice of just becoming centered and safe in your own space, allowing yourself to hear. And it wasn't necessarily they weren't outside voices that you were listening to. I mean, it's an intuition course, but still, I think we take intuition to mean outside of ourselves. Still, we think of channeling or whatever, spirit, something outside of ourselves. But yeah, this really was intuition, in that it's inside of you. And we were learning, you were teaching us how to, first of all, listen to our bodies. You took us through exercises about exploring where tightness was in our body and so forth, and just getting to a place where we could hear and feel and listen. And that was a huge part of the 5 days, were just different exercises to prep us for that creative experience. Yeah. So thank you for that. And
well, thank you for your reflection. Yeah. I really feel, all those things you talked about, like channeling or listening to things outside ourselves, that's all possible. But like you said, like to come into a relaxed state within, there's so much we have already that if we are able to be in that calm, receptive state, we don't necessarily need to get it from everywhere else. It's already, all that good knowledge is already there for us inside of us.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, I kind of got a little ahead of myself. Let's start off with the let's grab a drink segment. So
Okay.
this segment, we pop into a virtual coffee house before hitting the beach. And being the benevolent host that I am, your order is on me. So what order do you give the barista?
Well, I love coffee. So, normally if I go into a coffee shop, I'm really just ordering a regular coffee. But sometimes if I'm feeling like decadent, then I will get a mocha or a cappuccino, or sometimes I'll get a turmeric latte. That's also a really nice one for wintertime.
Turmeric is good for inflammation, right?
Yes, yeah.
Well, now that you have your refreshing beverage, let's dive in. Sometimes living one's purpose and going through this human experience can look like playing small, but other times it can look like playing big. So in your spotlight moments, Sequoia, have there been any claims to fame, times that our listeners may have seen you or your work?
Well, I'm also a musician. So it's possible that listeners might have seen me in that capacity. I was in a band, Sakoyana, so they might have heard me singing or playing clarinet there. And I also did a bunch of sing-alongs when we were like having really extreme lockdown. So those are all public on my Facebook page. So aside from spiritual work, although I do think music is spiritual work, that might be a place that people have seen me. And then also in my spiritual work, I've been a guest on my friend Daly's Facebook page. So there's some videos there of me. And yeah, you found me through lovely spiritual friends. So I would say I've also been at, some festivals reading for people. So like Redwood Reconnect is a place people might have seen me, or Om Rising is another place people might have seen me. And all my social media stuff, Instagram, Facebook, etc.
Well, the next segment is linguistic tag. Guests are asked to choose a word or phrase that they would like to hear used more often in everyday conversation. Something that doesn't get enough play or enough airtime. And the prior guest chose for you, hold on, let me look. Serendipity.
Oh, nice one.
Okay, so you are tasked to try to somehow fit that into our conversation today, okay?
All right.
Now, you also get to choose a word for the next guest to dance with.
Okay.
A word that you find funny or that resonates with you. So what are you laying down for them to pick up?
I really like the word ease.
Ease. Nice. So this is where we get into the interview part of it. And that's why I was saying I kind of got a head start on that. This is usually where I tell people how I connected with you. But let me ask you, how did you come up with the idea for the is a 5-day, right? 5-day intuition course? How'd you come up with that?
Yeah, 5-day Unlock Your Intuition Challenge. Yes.
How did that how was that birthed?
Well, it was birthed because I was getting a lot of questions about how to tune in for yourself. People would get a reading and then really often it would come up, well, like I love to come to you and get this, but how do I do this for myself? Or like I feel like I hear and know things, but then I don't trust it. How do I trust? How do I really believe that the messages I'm getting are true? And so, yeah, I felt like it was kind of like you said. I feel like my perspective on that is maybe a little different. And so I decided to create that little course to help people really build, like you said, the knowledge of themselves and trust in themselves to feel comfortable in believing themselves.
Yeah. What was one of the cool things that you offered during that challenge were giveaways. So if we did certain homework steps, if I
Yeah,
could call it that,
yeah.
we were entered into a drawing to win something.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my love languages is gifts. Like I love
Yes.
I love to win things.
Yeah.
And so I did. I won, I think it was day 2. And so I won a card reading from you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't in real time. How you do it is you, at least during this, you
Mm-hmm.
actually you sent me to your website. So you must do this for most people, right? It's not real time,
Yeah, there
but
are different options. There are real-time options for readings, but then there's also recorded readings.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Mhm.
So put in my question that I was wanting answered, and I really didn't know what to ask because
Yeah.
I tried to do something general, like what is something that I should look at or deal with or something. And you came back with a video recording of it. Actually, it was just an audio version.
And yeah, MP3. Mhm.
Yeah. And so it was really interesting. One of the cards that came through was Ashtar, Commander Ashtar.
Uh-huh.
I don't know even how to
Yes,
pronounce
yes.
it. So it was really it was really interesting. Um, I had gotten from other readings before to the suggestion to call in my galactic family for
Uh-huh.
support and to ask questions. So that kind of just reinforced that. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. So had also asked you before we started recording if you would mind doing a reading for
Yeah.
listeners.
Yeah. So I'm gonna use this Light Seers deck, which I use really often. There's a little preview. The world happens to be right there. So I figured we could do a reading for the collective, for everyone listening, for this January, what to be aware of, what to cultivate as we turn into the new year, into 2022. Oh, all right, here we go. So we start a little bit like we did with the earth and sky meditation. So feeling your connection to the earth and to the sky. Asking that this reading be in service of the highest good of everybody listening, no matter what time you are listening. Calling in the energies or entities most needed at this time in service of the highest good of this collective. Asking that we get the right messages at the right time and that I say the right words for all of us. Asking that I can be like a straw so messages come through cleanly and clearly and I'm out of my own way. And as I'm shuffling, asking what we most need to be aware of as this year turns, what will serve us all to cultivate in January. All right, so before I even show the cards, I got a big message for everybody, for me, for you, for everybody, to shake off the darkness. And so that would mean to me, like shake off the darkness means like literal physical movement to shift energy. And of course, this would apply for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. During winter, we tend to get more stagnant. So it makes sense to shake off that energy, but also I mean, we as humanity have had a hell of a time. So, as we all know, right? So, that shake off, like literal, like I was feeling it, especially in the shoulders. Shake it off. Like dancing, especially felt like the right thing, but any kind of movement, like hiking, running, being silly with kids, that kind of energy, to especially when we start feeling like, oh, heavy, like if you're reading news incessantly and feeling like, oh God, now this next thing, it's the perfect time to do it. And to support this message, one of the cards we got is Eight of Swords. Eight of Swords, really asking us to cultivate the feeling of freedom. Like we're not stuck in the way that we think we are. And you can see really clearly in that imagery, she's looking in the mirror, feeling really tied up by whatever forces she's imagining. But in reality, she can just move and be free. Literally, like she's got herself like this to let that freedom out. So we're being asked to let that go. When this shows up in what to cultivate, let go of that sense of being confined, being stuck in a literal sense, but also in an energetic, physical sense. Speaking of celestial connections, the star. So this is one of the ways we can also cultivate that feeling of freedom. When we do have restrictions on us in whatever form, like sometimes, yeah, we are limited in a literal way in some fashion. And one of the ways that we can remember that we're free, ultimately, like inside of ourselves, we're free. Nobody has control over the inside of us unless we're giving it up in some way. So connecting with those celestial guides, celestial spirits, going outside at night and seeing the stars, and really meditating on the vastness of space. If you get out there, you can really start doing astral projection and stuff. But even if you're not into that, just feeling how, okay, here I am on Earth and looking up into the sky and seeing it's immense and I can't even see everything that's there. That can help us remember, oh, right. There's spaciousness, literally, there's space that can help us feel free and settled. And that's also part of connecting to the sky when we did that meditation at the beginning. Any of the listeners could go back and listen again and pause at that point to allow a fuller experience of that connection. And then we have Queen of Pentacles. And I just want to compare Eight of Swords. There's not a lot of movement in that card, feeling trapped and restricted, versus Queen of Pentacles. She's also not moving a lot, but it's like she knows how to rest and relax, but not in this way of feeling trapped within oneself. You can see the really strong connection to nature there. So these two cards really echoing each other. Celestial connection, nature connection, sky and earth. It's no coincidence that that is the meditation I happen to pick, or our beginning set here. So Queen of Pentacles also really knows how to get into that meditative space, knows how to treat herself incredibly well, really believes and cultivates within her a sense of value and deservingness. And, you know, as we go continue into holiday time at the turn of the year, and we think like, yeah, I deserve 5 cookies, or whatever. And sure we do, but that's not what we're talking about here with Queen of Pentacles. What she knows she deserves is true richness, which comes from really respecting and honoring the resources we have, using them in a beautiful way, so that any new resources that come into our life feel honored. She honors herself by honoring all that she has and honoring all that comes to her. So it comes to her in an easeful way. So there's another message there, actually, as we move into this new year. If any listeners are trying to create more abundance in any kind of fashion, whether that's literal money or an abundance of time or an abundance of, I keep hearing a lot about kids right now. I mentioned kids a few times, an abundance of joy for their kids or an abundance of fun activities for themselves and their kids. It comes from appreciating what you already have in those places, what you already have cultivated in those places. And then you get to invite it in a much more pleasant way. It's really more of an invitation than like, oh, I need it. This is like, I need it, I don't have it. Ah! And this is like, ah, okay, I really deserve this. I know that my family deserves this. All the best can come to me if I allow it to come in. So, all right, any questions about these for our turn of the year for the collective listeners?
No, I just like it. I'll give listeners a little bit of backstory that I haven't had any podcast guests for a while, but I put out some invitations and 2 guests happened to book on the same day. And so that starts everything off with a bang.
Yeah.
And so I just like changed shirts so that people wouldn't see me wearing that. But the guest that was earlier today that I interviewed, it was about allowing a lot of that childlike qualities that to come through, to have fun and to allow for hobbies and not feel like you have to make every interest or hobby a side hustle. Like,
right, that's right. You don't have to. Yeah, it's
so
totally right.
And it's just been cool, the whole idea of the dancing, especially the movement, but especially dance. Listeners who have been following me will know that that's been coming up here recently, the invitation to dance. And maybe the reason why it keeps coming through is because I keep forgetting about it.
Yeah.
I'm not following through. So, golly.
That's usually how it works. And so, you said your last guest gave the word of synchronicity for us. So, I mean, that's a lot of synchronicities already, right? The dance,
It was
the childlike
serendipity.
joy.
Yeah, that's similar. Serendipity.
Oh, serendipity. Okay. Serendipity. It'll work its way in.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your interest in tarot. Like, when did you first get your tarot deck and start doing readings for people?
Yeah. Well, I was probably, I think the first time I ever learned about tarot, I was pretty young, maybe 7. My family, my mom and stepdad met at a psychic fair. So, or psychic reading, I can't quite remember. But so it was kind of around me for a long time. And they both had a deck. They weren't regularly using it, but it was around. And various practices that I would say, like, it wasn't really consistent, but various practices were around and sort of I was made aware of them as I was growing up. And then when I was a teenager, I started reading for my friends. And yeah, sort of like had this little group of friends that we would get together and do various cult. I don't think of it now as a cult, but at the time that was like the word I had, sort of practices. And so I was reading then, and I put it away for a little while when I went to college and sort of got like very like, okay, I'm very studious, I'm very logical now. I'm not doing that. And that was silly. Basically, there was a point in time in my life where I was like, no. I was just imagining all that. It's not real. And they kept being like, you're lying to yourself, right? They kept knocking on my door. And I did know I was lying to myself, but I just did that for a little while. And then I would say in my mid-20s, I came back to it in a much more serious way. And I still kept the studious part of me. That's definitely a part of my personality, but I studied, how to read and really deeply studied the meanings in a richer way than I had back when I was a teenager or back when I was a little kid, just kind of like, looking at them and thinking they were cool. And then it just sort of developed from there. I definitely had that little part of me that was like, it's not true, or like, it sort of came back when I was ready to be like, okay, everybody, I do this publicly for you, for anyone who wants to come see me. That little part of me was like, are you really going to say that for real? Are you going to put yourself out in the world like that and tell people like this is the kind of person you are, like spiritual woo woo? And so it did take a little bit like, yes, I am. Oh, here's my cat.
Speaking of spiritual and woo woo,
Yeah.
cats.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One of my most recent, well, as of the day of this recording, the last podcast that was released was an episode. We could have used more cats.
Yeah, I was listening to it. And
Okay.
I was just about to mention it's such a beautiful turn of phrase, right? We could have used more cats. How wonderful.
Cool.
I loved it.
I'm trying to remember the name of the lady now who did this, but she was talking about all these different practices. Let's bring it back to sex. I'm like, they're different turn-ons.
Uh-huh.
So like tarot it may be the way that you connect, and but it's not the same thing for someone else.
Yeah.
Within the energy tribe group, there are people who have a very special relationship with their pendulum. Like it's amazing. It's so crazy how accurate and how strong that relationship is. So I'll try, maybe my thing is pendulum, and then I'll try it, and then no, not so much. And then like with the cards, can you point to, was it just a series of events, or was there one particular time that you can look back on and say, this is when I realized that there was something to it, that it wasn't just fun, that it can be fun at the same time, but that there was substance to it, that it was spot on, and this is my main tool.
Yeah, so speaking, I'm getting goosebumps. That's one of my biggest signs, by the way. But like, that's something important and spiritual is happening. So yeah, you're asking when I sort of realized, that like tarot cards are my tool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I have a few answers about that. So one is that I could put them away and still do my work. So there's that. I think that when we find a tool that works for us, then great, and use it. And also, if all of them are taken away, we would still have our connection. We would still have our intuitive abilities. So there's that. But I will say that during that little period when I was like, I don't do this, I still did do it a little bit. And a friend of mine, we were home on college break, and he was visiting, and I took out my cards and gave a reading, even in my like, whatever, this is silly mode. And the reading was so powerful and correct, like really, really correct. It was a moment when, even through my own skepticism or my own doubt or my own blocking, my own veiling, it came through so strongly that no, come on, like this is, how can you be sitting here saying this is nothing when you just gave this unbelievable reading and your friend is sitting here like, whoa. So that was definitely a moment, and that had to settle into me a little bit, because I had to go through that little period of pushing away. And yeah, I've mentioned in other interviews that there's something to me about this movement and hearing this sound as I shuffle that gets me into the intuitive place a little better. And that's really nothing to do with pulling the cards at all. It's a feeling of a rhythm in my hand, and hearing the helps me to move into intuitive space. So that's part of a reason I like the cards. Is I am as a musician too, I play piano. I love to knit and crochet. I love to be gardening, and it's all hand stuff. So that's definitely part of why I love the cards, is it's something in my hands to help me move into the correct frame of mind.
I'll just mention really quickly that Chelsea, who I interviewed earlier today, she's also a knitter. So
Uh,
there's like a lot of overlap.
yeah, that's beautiful.
Have there been other tools that you have found that get you into that intuitive space just as quickly
Mhm.
or powerfully?
Yeah, yes. So as I mentioned a few times now that I'm a musician, and music in general is a tool, whether you're playing, I think for everybody, whether you're playing and singing yourself or listening, I think it absolutely can move. It moves me, and I think it can move anybody into that intuitive space pretty quickly. And speaking of pendulum, that was actually one of the earliest tools I did use. That was introduced to me when I was very young. During that time, I was talking about growing up. And I used that my whole life. And that's a little, to me, just personally, it's a more of a private practice for me than than tarot is, or just reading. Sometimes I read without the cards at all. I find that to be really between me and my spirit guide, or me and whatever angel I'm connecting with. It's a little more intimate for me personally. So there's that. I mean, meditation was like pretty high on the list. Pretty high on the list. And walking also, I find to be very, very powerful. Like phone home, leave the phone at home and go for a walk, be in nature, gets me there really, really quite quickly. And what actually one of my earliest memories, one of the most profound memories I have is I was like 3 or 4 years old, and I was in my nan's backyard just playing by myself, and there were all these little purple violets popping up in the yard. And I was just like, I don't know, playing like a little kid does, picking them and doing little pretend games. But it's funny because you're a kid, it's so natural. You don't like really take notice of it. But I've remembered it so strongly as an adult. I could feel like this just beautiful, 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 warm, loving energy. I felt really encircled in this. It's really hard for me to put words in it, but very protective. And I felt so at ease, speaking of ease, at ease and peaceful. And so that nature connection, it's kind of weird to call nature a tool, but anyway, being in nature really, really, really will do it for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love nature as well. That's probably one of my favorite. I hadn't thought of it as a tool, but
Right,
yeah,
right.
it definitely
Mhm.
is. I mean, I think I've done an episode talking about my spiritual toolkit, and going
Uh-huh.
out to nature was one of them. So
Right.
yeah, tool. And so
Yeah.
what are some ways of using tarot that might surprise our listeners?
Yeah. So I think one thing is people can get a little overly serious about
Mm.
it. um, and yeah, tarot can and should, I hesitate to use the word should, but I'm going to use it, can and should be a joyful experience. We can get really profound and deep messages while letting it be light and pleasant and joyful. And I think people really get caught up in that when they're trying to learn, and like remembering all these meanings and the court cards and everything else. It starts getting to be stressful. And just like we did in Unlock Your Intuition, the first step is relaxing. So the first step is inviting, like, yeah, a pleasant experience. And also my degree is in teaching, and having taught for a long time in various forms, we learn best when we're having a good time, when it's a fun and pleasant experience.
Mm.
So I don't know, I got a little off on a tangent there, but you asked me. So I would say that, like a surprising way for people to use cards is it doesn't always have to be about a big crisis. You could be like, what would be fun for me to have for dinner today? Let's see. The Empress. So maybe there's a lot of water and fish there. So if you eat fish, maybe you would have fish. if not, you might think like, oh, when I was little and my mom was really taking beautiful care of me and I felt so warm and protected, what did I have for dinner that day? Right. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm like struggling at work and what to do. Yeah, you can use it for that. But also, your deck has energy. And sometimes if we're always coming to it with heavy, heavy, heavy stuff, it can get tired. Be like, can you give me a break?
So how often would you say for yourself that how often a day or do you find yourself pulling out a deck?
Yeah, I'm probably touching a deck every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one good way, not surprising really, but one good way to get to know cards is people will do a daily draw and just do like a little journal about it. Doesn't have to be a long thing, but that is a way to get to know it. And, also because it's my work. So like, I'm reading for people and touching the deck all the time. But yeah, I mean, maybe there's every once in a while, there's a day that I don't pick it up, but I usually pick it up, even just to sort of say hello and be friends.
Are you one of those people who collects decks compulsively, or do you have like your like 2 or 3 and you're good with that?
I wouldn't say compulsively, but I do have a number. Like I have right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just sitting here, and those are the ones that I'm having in rotation. And I definitely have others in the closet. So like I'm in some tarot groups. I don't have like whole walls filled with decks like some people have, but I definitely have more than a few. But I also try when I find myself not using a deck very much and it just doesn't speak to me maybe ever or in the way it used to, I'll try to just give that away to somebody so it can go to a new home. Also, my space that I live in is small. So generally speaking, with everything I own, I'm trying to like, oh, I don't use this, let's let it go.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Different artists and different decks have really different personalities and vibes. And there's some amazing artwork to be seen and had. So just even purely from an art appreciation perspective, there are so many amazing decks to appreciate and love.
I will tell you one thing that I had thought about doing was a Star Trek deck.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy Star Trek a lot.
Mhm.
And with my Akashic record reading practice, I was thinking ways to keep engaged and stuff. One project that would take a while is, to pick a character and then channel a message from the Akashic records as far as that Star Trek character.
That would be amazing. Yes.
Well, I gotta know. Well, because I'm one of those action people.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to live life with these what ifs or could have beens.
Yeah.
And so if I find myself saying that or someone else, I'm like, no, let's actually do it. So I approached Star Trek.
Oh, you got to know from Star Trek.
Know from them.
Oh.
Yeah. And asked if they would be interested in that. I mean, I had no artists in mind that I would work with, but at least I would, I'd be able to come up with the booklet and all that stuff that goes with the cards.
Yeah.
And they said no, that they already have the certain company that handles all of that line. They call it that's the spiritual line of products. So then I didn't even take that as for no. I asked if they could tell me what company it was that they had chosen so that I could approach them.
Yeah.
And they never got back with me.
Oh, I wonder if you could find out though. I'm sure there's a way to find out. And I mean, that like Star Trek is so rich for that. I mean, it would be.
Oh my gosh. Yes, there is.
Yeah, it would be. I think it would be amazing.
So anyway, if that ever becomes something, I'll let you know and maybe we collaborate.
Yeah, I'd love to know about it.
On a Star Trek deck.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the series?
Yeah, I mean, not in the way some people are. Like I have not seen like every last episode from every last season, but I have definitely seen many. My dad was really into it growing up, and my stepmom. So I definitely watched growing up. And yeah, I do really enjoy it, but I'm not like a Trekkie.
Mm. Yeah, there are some people that would probably not consider me a Trekkie either, because even though my heart is in it, I love it.
Yeah.
My short-term memory is so bad.
Ah.
Like I could watch a show and then immediately forget what was the name of that race.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Idea.
Yeah.
So I would not have the knowledge base with which to impress anyone.
All right. Yeah.
It'd be like, you're not Trekkie at all. I may have watched like almost every single episode, but that doesn't mean the names of or the
Right.
races stuck with me at all. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, you just made me kind of think of another tool that I would say I use. Um, it's a funny connection there because when you're saying like you don't necessarily remember all the details, I have a habit when I'm reading books to skip titles of chapters for some reason. I love to read. I read a lot. And like ever since I was a kid, I would do this, and I don't really know why. I'm just like, oh yeah, it's whatever. I just go on to the main text. But anyway, it reminded me that reading spiritual books, but really any books, if they're getting to me, is also another avenue into like opening up my intuitive channel pretty quickly. So I forgot to say that.
I'm currently reading the book The Untethered Soul. Have you read that book before?
I haven't. Definitely heard of it, but I haven't read it. How are you finding it?
It came highly recommended by one of the recent podcast guests, and I had heard of it recommended before, so that wasn't different. But what was new is to the extremes. She like gifts it to everybody, and she just believes that strongly in it. And so I've been reading through that book, and there have been a lot of interesting powerful stuff that you can't just rush through it. There's a lot of complete paradigm shifts that take time to process and to really sit with it. So it's been a neat book. I like
Beautiful. I should check it out.
Check it out.
Yeah.
One of the things that had occurred to me earlier, but I forgot, it's just a simple question. When you do the spreads, do you have a go-to, like how many cards you do, like 3 or?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the reading. So, and even in my offerings, there's like 3-card reading, 10-card reading, etc. So those have very specific amounts of cards and very specific layouts. And then also in live readings, I will use those. I'll use specific spreads, but also I tend to design spreads on the fly, depending on what's been asked. So I like to do it that way because I find it to be much more flexible and much more pinpointed to the question that I get. So it's a mix of both, whether I'm using standard spreads or my own devising in the moment, which is also how I like to teach. I like to have flexibility and freedom because I find for me, if I box myself into a plan too rigidly, then I don't have space for that, like, oh, this would be the right thing right now, to get that intuitive inspiration.
I see that also with me in the podcast. People will ask me, what is your podcast about? And I don't like to box myself in by saying it's about any one thing. And I'll tell people it's about whatever I find interesting. And it just so happens that, during this space of my life, maybe forever, but it's been a lot of spiritual themes. But I don't want to just box myself in and say, this is what my listeners are expecting, so this is the kind of person I'm going to bring in, when there could be, like, for instance, my next door neighbor, she's putting together a nonprofit she's put together a nonprofit called Jar of Change, and it's about helping the homeless.
Beautiful.
And so she probably would not identify as being part of the spiritual community, but that is definitely someone I would want to talk to.
Right. Yeah.
And
I mean, that when we talk about spiritual, like this is something I've thought about quite a lot. Kind of what you're talking about is, yeah, we have certain images or thoughts in our mind about what spirituality is, but it is also absolutely the day-to-day activity that we engage in, like that, literally everything we can do could be a spiritual practice if we decide to make it that. So yeah, life and spirituality and work and personality and family are all kind of one thing.
I've joined this online social media platform that's on Mighty Networks, and it's hosted by Holisticism Hub. They have a place on there, a community on there, and one of the people, her spiritual offering is mending, teaching people how to mend clothes.
Yes,
so she'll put together, she'll have these Zoom meetings where people come together with something that needs mending, and she will teach them or show them via Zoom, if they need it, how to mend and stitch something up, which I thought was really cool, because it fills in a gap where some of us were not taught how to stitch anything up, and so we just have to go buy something else. And that was part of her decision to create this, is because, for one thing, she enjoys sewing, but another is she sees this really big moral dilemma surrounding clothes and the factories and the working conditions and how we just buy and throw away.
Yep, absolutely.
And so this is her way of contributing, and she definitely considers it a spiritual practice. And so she brings some breath work or mindfulness to the beginning of the Zoom session. And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah.
Some of you who have been listening to Sheffy's Sandbox for a while, you may have been thinking to yourself, where's our favorite segment, Nonsense with Natalie? Well, Natalie has had a very busy schedule, but she is back and better than ever, I believe. We're going to find out with the quality of her jokes. So, but before you do yours, I actually have one as well.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so, and I know it's past Christmas, so this is a little outdated, but listeners, you can just save this in your pocket for
next Christmas.
Yeah, a whole 12 months if you can remember it that long. Okay, so Natalie, what do you get if you deep fry Santa Claus?
A milkshake and cookies? I don't know.
All right, here's the answer. Crisp Kringle. Do you get it?
Kind of.
Because his name's supposed to be Crisp Kringle.
Kringle? Does Santa Claus have the name of Kringle?
Yeah. So instead of crisp, they change it to crisp.
Oh.
I know, it's kind of a downer. So
I have a better one.
Exactly. I'm setting the stage, so hopefully yours is so much better.
Yeah. How does a squid go into a battle?
How does a squid go into a battle? Squids are a little creepy and scary to me. So I just know they're really fast, like a bullet. How do they go into battle, though? Isn't there some type of like army squid, like some type of, I don't know. What's the answer?
They're well armed.
Oh gosh.
They're well armed. They are.
They do have lots of arms.
Seriously, they will. They are.
Okay, that one was very good.
Thank you.
So did you want to close out your segment?
Can I do another joke?
I guess maybe we're going to make up for all these episodes you haven't had.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Okay, that's another joke. And just so that you guys know where we're getting some of these jokes from, let me just look at the website.
Okay.
I actually get a newsletter, and it's from Funny Editor. So if you want to liven up your inbox, jokes from Funny Editor. Okay, go ahead. What's the joke?
I don't know.
I'll just pick one.
I'll do two.
No, you already did one.
Why?
No.
Oh, fine. Why do skunks celebrate Valentine's Day?
Why do skunks celebrate Valentine's Day? I have no idea.
They're very sentimental.
Oh, I get it. Sentimental.
Why do you call a nutty dog in what do you call a nutty dog in Australia?
A nutty dog in Australia. I don't know.
A dingoling. A
Ah.
dingo. If y'all don't know what a dingo is, it's an animal in Australia. So
Okay, so I think we're done for now.
we are. Okay. Yeah, we are.
Do you want to say anything to your fans?
I promise I will be back more often. I will try. I promise.
Okay, I think they'll be very happy with those assurances.
And also,
so.
I have like a very nutty joke. My biggest fan, it's getting a little hot in here, so do your job.
What is
Yeah.
that? Huh?
My biggest fans, I'm getting a little hot in here, so do your job.
Oh gosh, I thought we were done with the jokes for now.
I don't know.
Okay, we're done.
Okay.
Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Stop. Bye-bye now.
Did you want to talk about time?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's what I approached you in the
Yeah.
email about, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Thank you so much. Because I am caught off guard and totally reminded about my own words, can you refresh my memory?
Sure. Yeah.
Was there a specific, I know there's like a specific post or something that you did about time. What was that?
Yeah. I put in my recent newsletter, I've been getting a lot of messages about time. And so let's see if I can remember what they were. I know one was that, yes, we may have heard that time is an illusion and maybe even experienced it, or like doesn't work in the way that we normally think of it in this linear way, but that it's most important to remember that when we least feel it. Like when we're, feeling really pushed up against a deadline, or like, oh my God, I have so many things to do in this day, it's impossible. That like in those moments when we're feeling like I do experience this in a completely linear way is when it's most important to remind ourselves it doesn't actually work that way. So that was one thing I wrote. I also wrote about getting messages to keep the calendar spacious. And that was a personal message for me, but also for everyone. And I would say that ties into the reading we did too at the beginning for the collective. We're talking about space and spaciousness. That applies to calendar and time as well. What else did I write in that newsletter? Oh, time is not running out. For any of us, for anything, for any wishes and dreams we have for our lives, there's enough time. There's enough time. There's enough time. And even if you believe in reincarnation, there's even more time. Yeah, so time is not running out. I know there were 5 things I wrote, and I'm right now only remembering those 3.
Okay, so I'm so glad you reminded me about that, because that was the reason why I was like, I need to extend an invitation to Sequoia to come onto the podcast and talk about time, because I had just had a hypnosis session in which that was the messaging that came through for me. And so when I saw like almost the exact same words come through your newsletter, I was like, okay, that is serendipitous, that's synchronistic. I need to ask and see what she says. I mean, it's not gonna hurt to ask. But the messaging that came through the hypnosis session was that no one and nothing is served by thinking that we are running out of time. And I totally believe that now. So someone that I shared this with, I love how my community kind of keeps me, they think for themselves, right? They're not just going to say, oh yeah, whatever. And she was like, I think there are some instances, I think that might come into play or might be helpful, thinking that
Running out?
time is running out.
Mm.
So I was sitting with that, and I'm thinking more of what she was trying to say is that there's value in the time is now,
Right. Yeah.
but I still stand by that. I don't think that anything is served by that we're short on time or anything like that,
Mhm.
because from that space of lack,
That's
or
exactly what I was about to say. Yeah.
from that lack that has a lot of fear attached to it for
Exactly.
me
Yeah.
personally. And maybe that's why it came through my hypnosis sessions, because I needed to hear it.
Mhm.
And it didn't resonate for her, because maybe she does feel a need for more of that fire underneath her
Right.
to
Yeah.
get
I mean,
her
and I
going.
think that those could go together, right? That feeling of being lit up and passionate about something and wanting to go for it right now, I think can go perfectly with being like, there's enough time for everything.
Yeah, because whenever I start to think about time is running out, it kind of drains that energy for me.
Mhm.
So whenever I think about, okay, I'm 40 years old and I think some things should have already happened by
Right.
now,
Yeah.
or that if something was going to happen, it should have happened already, and that
Mhm.
it's kind of, I'm too old or
Uh-huh.
whatever to
Yeah.
do this and that. It's I don't know, it's just very constrictive for me.
It is. It is really constrictive. Yeah. And these messages, like the time, I didn't talk about it in the reading we did, but that constriction with that Eight of Swords versus the star feeling so right. And that's the other thing. I don't think I wrote this exactly in the newsletter, but what feels, I've gotten this message and felt this many times too. What feels slow and long and arduous here on the other side is so fast. And that the element or feeling of celestial or divine timing, right? Like everything in right time. And sometimes it is the right time to have the fire and go and do it. And sometimes it's the right time to rest and relax. But what is right timing for somebody else? Maybe, whatever thing you're wanting to have happen and it happened for somebody else when they were 20, but it happens for you when you're 60 or whatever. That's the right timing. There is no, this is the appropriate time and that is the inappropriate time.
I shared on my social media here recently. I just reposted something I had seen about the oldest active gymnast. She was 90 years old. Did you
Yeah,
see
I think I saw this as well.
that? So it had my attention, especially since I had just had the messaging about time,
Yeah.
never feeling that there's not enough time or your time's passed or that you're ever too old for something. And so I put on there a little caption of just never stop doing what you love.
Mhm.
And that was so inspiring for me.
Yeah, yeah. Right. It's like the
See her in
cultivation of joy, which I think is so, we talked about it a little bit with what's surprising about tarot, that it can be like joyful and silly and fun. But I think cultivation of joy is like a really important spiritual practice and helps us feel, wonderful and light, even among dark times, even among difficult times personally or societally. To cultivate joy is so powerful and helps put us in a place where like we can actually do meaningful change instead of getting
Mhm.
overwhelmed, exhausted. And same thing with the time, we feel like, oh no, I gotta do it now. Oh. We're not gonna do the same quality of work that we could. We felt, yeah, just more spacious. I keep saying it, but
So this is backtracking, and I think you've already touched on it a little bit. So this is a two-pronged question. Someone who is interested in exploring tarot,
uh-huh.
first of all, how would you suggest they get into it? Is there a specific course that you could recommend or a
Mhm.
resource?
Yeah.
And then secondly, what are things that you would warn someone against as they get into tarot? You already kind of touched on
Yeah.
not taking it too seriously,
Yeah.
but if you could touch on those things.
Yeah. So actually, I didn't even mention this to you, but I'm right now running a Tarot 101 course. And that I'm doing a live version right now, and that's finishing. Well, by the time people hear this, it will have finished. But I will be putting out a self-paced version pretty soon, and I might run it live again. I haven't really decided about that. So I recommend my course. But also I recommend that you find, when you're wanting to first get into tarot, that you find a deck that you like. And if you get a deck and it's not working for you, then you don't have to, you're not married to it. You don't need to like, oh, this is the one. It doesn't have to be the one. Go find a different one that works for you and speaks to you. And many people start with the Rider-Waite, which is the classic deck. And if that does work for you and speak to you, then use it, but it doesn't work for everybody. So don't be afraid to go find, an alternative deck. And there's so many. There's so many indie decks. You could go on Kickstarter and find like a billion. Find the artwork that really works for you.
Clarification. So there is a difference between tarot and oracle.
Absolutely.
And so you're saying that even within just the tarot decks, there are numerous varieties?
Yes, like unending. I mean, it's still like 78 cards. Every tarot deck is going to be 78 cards. It's going to have the major and minor arcana. The structure will be the same, more or less. People have different takes on different cards, but more or less it's the same. Versus oracle decks don't have a set number of cards. And I don't know, I was about to say they're more approachable, but that's not exactly correct. They're just for something, it's a different purpose. I mean, I also use oracle decks, like the reading you got from me was using an oracle deck. But they're maybe like a little more immediately accessible. But don't let you think that tarot isn't accessible. It absolutely is. So yeah, get a deck that speaks to you. And then one of the things you can do as you're learning, let's say you just pull a card. Okay, Knight of Pentacles. And you're like, I don't know what this means. You don't have to immediately know. Just start describing what you see in the card and you'll start to get meanings out of it. Like if you just said, he's walking barefoot on the earth. He has many pentacles behind him. His horse is following him. It's a beautiful day in nature. You just start explaining and you'll start hearing yourself say meanings about the card. And you can do that in journal form as well. So,
you know what that reminds me of? I took a numerology course
Mm-hmm.
and they have something called, I didn't realize this was a thing, but it's called number gazing. And it kind of reminds me of the same thing. So as you're starting to get familiar with the meanings of the numbers, just, light a candle or just kind of set space and gaze at the number and see what kind of comes up as far as meanings or what it looks like to you. And so that kind of parallel.
I totally agree. And then the thing I strongly feel about tarot is like, it's great to learn all the meanings, the traditional meanings, and like wise, and yes, do that. And then don't let yourself get trapped by those meanings, because sometimes a card, I know in readings, like let's say, okay, I keep pulling the same ones, which means that's important messages. I just pulled 8 of Swords and Queen of Wands right out, which is what we got in the collective reading. But anyway, let's say I have this 8 of Pentacles in the reading. And normally this might be build your skills over a long period of time, daily efforts will turn out. But let's say for some reason in the reading, I'm really drawn to that aloe plant, right? I'm just like, that is the thing that's popping out to me. And I might start talking about aloe and skin healing and whatever. And that turns out to be the thing, the most important thing in the reading. So don't let yourself get pinned in by a traditional meaning. Yes, good to know them. But also, if your intuition says something else, if you're drawn to something else, like go with it. That's for a reason. That's really there for a reason. Yeah. So for things to avoid, when you're interested in learning and getting started, you do want to avoid coming to your deck when you are in a state of panic or extreme stress. Yeah, we can get guidance during those times, but you want to be in some state of calm and receptivity, right? So like if someone just called you and you got terrible news, don't go right to your deck. It's just a bad idea. And people can end up in, oh, what should I do? Queen of Pentacles, I don't like that answer. It's the Star, I don't like that answer. Ten of Wands, I don't like that answer. You just, you can get really anxious about it. And it's just you're not going to get good guidance when you come to your deck in that way. So I strongly recommend against that, even if it's like you want to do it so bad in that moment. At the very least, give yourself a little bit of meditation or a walk beforehand, or sleep on it and then come to the deck so that you're not in that state. It's just really hard to receive when you're,
I
or
mean,
you might
that
receive, but
makes
it's like not
that
what you actually want, not what is actually true.
that makes sense. I know in the class I took for the Akashic record reading, even when you're learning to read your own records, it's the same thing. You don't want to try to read your records when you are distraught.
Yeah, that's the word, distraught.
Distraught. You have a one trajectory mindset where, like you said, you're not receptive really to what's happening, to the message that could be coming through. And just not distraught. So if you need to do some breathing exercises, some calm, come to something of a place of neutrality.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. Neutrality is really key. And especially if you're reading for yourself, I find, it's harder for yourself to be neutral.
You know what? This brings up a great question. I know we're getting off topic a bit, but tell me what you think about this. Even people who we call ourselves intuitives, or we have our own spiritual practices.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have found it helpful in a time of doubt or uncertainty to bring someone else in, to go to someone for a reading.
Yeah.
And it's not as though we're giving our power away. We're recognizing that we're sovereign beings, but we are realizing that, I don't know, maybe we're not able to achieve that place of neutrality or something. Do you find yourself, even with all this intuition and you being a teacher, do you find yourself going to other people for readings? Or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And exactly like you said, there's right. It would be, I think it would be weird if we didn't. If we're here like, yes, I believe in this, like, this is strong, powerful work, this is my work. And then if we're like, yeah, but I don't need it, like, that would be strange, I think. So yes, I definitely go to other people for readings or for Reiki, or people who do different kind of work than me, in some different kind of vein. And I will do that both when I can't be neutral about my own life. And I'll also do it when everything's fine, because sometimes it's nice to just have something new and have another person's perspective, and they connect differently than me maybe. And I just enjoy it, I like being part of the community in that way.
I had an Akashic record reading from a student. I was one of her practice readings, and it really was so different than anything I would have, a reading that I would have given somebody, that it was interesting, and I enjoyed it because it was so different, and the information that came through had a different flavor. And so it tasted good.
Yeah, right, exactly. It is like a different flavor.
So did we get through your basic nose or your stay away guidance for the people who are starting?
Yeah, that's my biggest one, is like, don't read when you're distraught. That was the perfect word. And then let yourself take it easy. It doesn't, I mentioned before, the more stressful you make it, the less will you learn. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to know everything right away. You don't have to have humongous psychic insights the first time you ever encounter your deck. Like, it's just not how it goes.
Well, speaking of numerology, it's 2:22 in my time. So I think that's pretty cool.
Beautiful.
How can people find out more about you and follow what you're making in your own sandbox?
Yeah, so my website is infinitytreetarot.com. And all of my offerings are on there, and my blog, which is a little inconsistent, to be honest, but I'm trying to be better about that. And then also on Instagram is a really good place to find me. That's at Infinity Tree Tarot. Facebook is also Infinity Tree Tarot, but I also have a group on Facebook, the Everyday Spirituality Community, which I definitely recommend people join. I'm like posting pretty often in there and like prompting some spiritual conversations. And I will soon be doing more, kind of like we did collective readings and what to look out for, meditations and that kind of thing. So I really personally love being in that group. So I recommend people go find that on Facebook as well.
I love how in the Lifestylist podcast, Luke Story ends all of his podcasts asking his guests this question. So I'm including it in mine. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings in your life that you might share with our audience that they could go research and also learn from?
Oh, okay. That they could also learn from, like find and learn from is a trickier question. But I will say that one of the most important, man, it's a hard question because I've had amazing teachers my whole life. But one of my really best teachers was a yoga teacher of mine back when I lived in New York. Her name is Ami Jayaprada Hirschstein. And I know she has a website, but I'm forgetting what it is now. But she teaches yoga and she also teaches Ayurveda. And I know she does some stuff online. She's doing Zoom yoga classes, so people could actually find her.
Can you email me her name, how it's spelled?
Absolutely. And I have up here somewhere. Yeah, she's the author of this book, The Idiot's Guide to 108 Yoga Poses.
Okay.
So, yeah, this will be an easy way to learn from her. Yeah. So that's one. Yeah. I wish I was still on the East Coast sometime so I could go to her classes. She's really amazing. Really, really, really amazing. Root to Rise, she's taught me. I'm sure other yoga teachers have taught that, but that is profound for me, actually. So that's like earth energy and sky energy as well, Root to Rise. That's one little teaching I could share of hers. So yeah, she's been really incredible. And this is a teacher I immediately wanted to mention, but I think it would be a lot harder to find this teacher. But my elementary music school teacher, Michelle Lerner. So
and it doesn't have to be like, I'll just say the previous guest, the one that I had interviewed earlier today, one of her teachers that she chose was her grandma.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. But she was such a beautiful light in my life. And I grew up in a family of musicians, but it was sort of very serious and very dedicated, and you practiced really hard. And that's good. But her classes were so fun and helped me love music, love it, not just be strict and disciplined about it, but really, really love it. And her energy was so beautiful to be around as a kid. I really appreciated just being in her presence was really quite lovely. So I also know that she taught in the Kodály, Kodaly tradition of music education.
Okay.
And that is a tradition I have also used in my own teaching as a music teacher. And it speaks to me pretty powerfully as well. So I don't know if you can find her exactly, but you could definitely find that tradition of teaching.
Well, that's cool. I mean, maybe I'll use that because I'm interested in getting my daughter into music lessons, and she's 10. So she's definitely, I had started her when she was 3 with piano. And
it's a little young to start piano. Usually usually like a really mature 4-year-old could start, but like 5 to 7 is the good age to start.
Okay, I think maybe it was more like 4, but I just know that it was like pulling a tooth trying to get her to practice. And we've let it go, and she's doing lots of other things, but I would love, before she gets much older, to bring music back in while the brain is still very loud.
Yes.
So I'll look and see if I can find anyone who teaches in that vein.
So who else? There's so many that those are definitely my top 2 teachers that I would name, to pick a third of the many that there are after that. This sounds whatever, we're talking spirituality, so I guess it's fine. I would not like people could learn about this, but I would actually say one of my really powerful teachers is my main spirit guide, who I call Fred. When I was first using that pendulum practice as a kid, I connected with him right away, among others, and his presence and guidance is very palpable to me. So I guess I would say for other people to connect with their own spirit guides to get that sort of learning.
What comes to mind is how someone would do that. I know
Mhm.
hypnosis is one of the
Yeah.
things that
Mhm.
I've been involved with soul empowering hypnosis workshops, and that's one of
Yeah.
the things that we can do. Can you think of other ways that someone would find out who their spirit guides are? Because I know you are very, probably very intuitive, and even as a
Uh-huh.
kid, you probably just ask, "What's your name?" Right. But someone who doesn't feel that connected yet, can you think of some way that they would, I don't know, forge that new relationship?
Mhm, mhm. So we're talking about all the various tools. You can definitely use the tools to connect with your spirit guide. And, if you don't, I just did a teaching on this inside. I teach an intuitive energetic hygiene. And in my level 2, the next level, I was just doing a teaching on connecting with your spirit guide. So one thing is that if you don't receive a name and you're just not sure, or you do receive a name and you're like, is that for real? I don't know. Just pick one. They'll be fine with it. They probably are giving it to you anyway, and just go with it. And, when I was a kid, Fred, yeah, of course, Fred. And then when I was an adult, I was like, that is such a boring, basic name. I started doubting it as an adult that was the correct name. But it doesn't really matter.
I'm so glad you said that because,
Yeah.
right, what occurred to me is that some of the names I've loved the best were nicknames that were given to me, like someone
Yeah,
called me
right.
something,
Yes.
and it just meant something
Yeah.
a little bit more to that
Yeah.
relationship. Someone called
Yeah.
me something other than April.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yes. Right. So, if you're just like,
and they may have names we couldn't pronounce anyway.
that's exactly right. Yes. So
Maybe a light language or
totally. Yeah. So, if you just pick a name, maybe it's like, I was saying this too in the teaching, it could be an initial, right? You could get like L or T or whatever. And if you don't know and you're not getting it, you can just be like, okay, I'm going to call you whatever, Anna, and if they really don't like it, which is so unlikely, you'll know and you'll pick something else. That's the other thing. If you're like, I don't feel it, I don't know, I'm not that intuitive, I can't do it. Like, you've been getting communications from them your whole life. And maybe you didn't realize it or you didn't put it in those terms, but you already know them. So it's not like somebody brand new that you're like, oh God, a stranger. You already know them. It's totally fine.
all right. Fred is
Yeah.
number 3. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. We have just reached our hour and a half mark. So I want to thank you, Sequoia, so much for joining
Oh,
me
thank
at the
you.
Sandbox.
It was so pleasant. It was so fun to do it.
Right, fun. I like to
Yes.
keep it fun. I don't want it to be boring because then I would lose the energy for it. There just
Yeah.
wouldn't be anything to tap into to do it. But
Mhm.
I enjoy meeting new people and learning. So I feel like I get so much from learning about other people, and yeah, it just makes my life so much richer. So,
Yeah.
and
Thank you
I will
so much.
include as many links as I can to your social media and ways that people can get in touch with you and work with you more.
Beautiful. Thank you.
But thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I know I didn't get serendipity in there, but maybe I'll find a way to put it in a blog or something.
There you
I
go.
will use it. I will definitely use it. I'm going to keep it going.
You have made it to the end of this latest episode. Congratulations. 2 things that I wanted to add. One is that this whole concept of time was really emphasized and brought to a head. There's so many synchronicities, right? I love that magic of life. It's the synchronicity. And I think synchronicity is the language of love and magic. It's just really cool. So along with the hypnosis session I had and Sequoia's newsletter, Karen Curry Parker had also come out with a video. She channels messages, and there had been one regarding time. So I will be linking that as well in the show notes. Please check it out. Secondly, I heard on the Astrology Hub podcast, this astrologer that was interviewed, and I can't pronounce his name, so I really apologize in advance. I'm not even going to try, but I'm going to link that show in the show notes, so you can check that out. And please listen to it. I feel like this is a perfect astrological forecast for 2022. That's great for even those people who don't believe in astrology or believe astrology is evil or whatever. I think there's something in here for everybody. And one of the things that he mentions is about communication in 2022, the importance of, I'm paraphrasing now because it's been a while since I listened to it, but talking with the heart, from the heart, and speaking in a language of love. And so I purchased this book, Nonviolent Communication, because that was another synchronicity. I know with Karen Curry Parker, one of her courses, a required reading is this book. And so it was already on my radar. And then once I heard this astrologer talk about the importance of communication in 2022, I got this. And he basically was saying that in so much black and white and people being at odds and on different ends of the spectrum, it's more important than ever to be able to bridge those gaps. So I went ahead and purchased this book as a Christmas present to myself. I love having something to open on Christmas. So I'll just show you 3 things that I had purchased for myself to open up on Christmas Eve. First of all, I got myself some nifty gel pens. I don't think you even necessarily have to be a writer per se to enjoy a good quality pen. So, and I have different colors. So that was really cool. And then I had purchased this book for myself. And that brings me back to, I will probably be, for those who are in my Patreon group, I will probably be adding this to our book club list sometime early this next year, 2022. Okay. And then thirdly, I had purchased this, The Complete Tales and Poems of Winnie the Pooh. It had come through in, Winnie the Pooh has come through several times in readings that I've given for other people. And then recently when I had a reading done for myself, someone, Eeyore came through. So I'm like, okay, I am going to listen and I'm going to go ahead and buy this. And one of the movies that I had thought had gotten way less press than it deserved was Christopher Robin, when it was out in theaters, I think several years ago now, but it was really touching and it really emphasized the importance of the present moment. So I'm really eager to get into that book as well. So if there is a final message, it is to love yourself, treat yourself, cultivate that friendship, that relationship, because a lot of relationships are for a season and may transition into something else. But that relationship you have with yourself is one literally for a lifetime. So be good to yourself, love yourself, and yeah, treat yourself the way your soul deserves. Okay. All right. Much love to you all.